So this video will run over a couple of things that are going to help you with managing classroom behaviour in group classes. This is something that if teachers have come from a background of teaching one-on-one lessons only, it does require a bit of a kind of mental shift to understand how you can successfully do that. You may not have the same sorts of challenges of managing behaviour in the classroom when it's one-on-one than when there is a group. So it's something that you do want to think about a little bit before you start doing it. I've occasionally had new teachers say something like, oh, it's impossible to teach an instrument in a group class, it can't be done. But I always think back to one of the teachers that we had teaching with us, who was a kindergarten teacher who happened to also be a musician. And she thought that teaching a group of only 6 kids was completely a walk in the park. She thought it was as easy as it could possibly be with only 6 children in class. So that kind of mindset of how you approach it can really inform how you experience it and the ways that you approach it to make sure that it is going to be successful. One thing to think about is that, particularly with teaching beginners, you would find teaching a lot of one-on-one lessons for beginners that you're explaining the same things over and over and over again. And that's not actually the most efficient use of your time as a teacher, to be doing the same things really repetitively. And of course, there is scope within the group programs that we use where there is multiple difficulty levels built into every song. So it's not like we're expecting all of the students in the class to be identical to one another, but there is things that certainly they can learn together, and it is much more efficient for the teachers to be able to do that. There's a saying that's something along the lines of idle hands, I don't know, do the devil's work or something. I'm not sure exactly what that saying is, but basically we need to be mindful that we're not speaking individually to one student in the class and having other students in the class be kind of just waiting around for something to happen. We need to make sure that everybody's got something productive to be working on. What we're not doing in these group classes is visiting each student one at a time and giving them a few minutes of our attention all the way through the entire class. That's not the style of classes that we're doing in this program. We are learning together and we are playing the same songs together with the variations on the different difficulty levels. So there should be no more than about 5 minutes in each class where you would have students practicing independently, and then you're visiting them to make sure that they're doing the difficulty level that's appropriate for them. Sometimes that the difficult behaviour might come up from students if they are kind of just waiting around while the teacher's talking to somebody else and they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. The other times that you might end up with behaviour that you're not really wanting to have in the class is either if a student is being asked to do something that they don't personally believe that they are capable of doing, or the reverse, if a student's actually bored. So as you get to know your students better, and you'll be able to assess who's capable of what and really make sure you're honing in on delivering exactly the right difficulty levels for each student. We do use some kind of reward systems in our classes. One of them there is this Smileys poster that you can download from the website. And the idea of it is basically that students would get smiley faces from doing the behaviours that we want: performing songs, listening, doing what they're asked, practicing well during individual practice time, and other things that the teacher would say. And then they would lose smiley faces for the behaviours that we don't want: talking or making noise while the teacher is talking, or while other people are performing or not listening, and other things your teacher says. So these lines in here, they really do give you as the teacher scope to make the rules be whatever you need them to be in the classroom. We've had teachers do this with a small handheld whiteboard where you just write the students' names on there and draw the smiley faces as they get them or lose them. And we also have data projectors in some classrooms, and we do it on just like a Word document or whatever, and then you can keep those names from one week to the next. It's really up to you. You could just do it with pencil and paper, or if you've got a whiteboard on the wall, or there's a number of different ways you can do that. So one thing that's really important with using something like the smiley faces is that students need to fully understand how it's going to work, and it needs to be implemented really, really consistently. When we very first implemented this with the class with some young children, and I got a phone call from a mum after class saying that her young son was in tears because he thought that somebody else had been given a smiley face when they were being silly, and he thought he deserved a smiley face. So you might think that, it's just a thing that I drew with a marker pen. It's not that much of a big deal, but it does actually have quite a strong effect on the students and their behaviour, and they'll all kind of sit up and listen and want to do the right thing to be able to get those smiley faces. Another thing that we've introduced in our studio that you may or may not want to consider is we've got a prize cabinet, and students will earn coins. So I got them off a website. They're bright coloured. This is pretty much what they look like, bright coloured, shiny, fake coins. And then the teachers allocate them basically for good behaviour. There's no kind of very detailed written description of exactly what they are to be given for, because obviously a class that's got 4-year-old children in it and a class that's got teenagers in it, that's going to be quite different. But what we do have a rule about for our teachers is that nobody is to be given more than 1 gold coin on any given class. They'd have to do something absolutely stupendous, and it would be no more than a once a year situation that someone would receive 2 in a single class. And the other thing is that they're not to be given them every single week, no matter what happens. They have to actually display some kind of positive, good behaviour, and just the bare minimum isn't really enough. And so then I can show you what our prize cabinet looks like. We took a few photos of it. So I just bought this at a store that sells lots of furniture, where you assemble them yourselves. I'm sure that is a furniture store available in many countries in the world. It wasn't that expensive. You might be able to find a second-hand cabinet on Facebook Marketplace or other second-hand options, but we ended up buying one. And I've just put a whole lot of things in there. There's some candy in there. There's some kind of stationery bits and pieces. There's some books, a few other things here and there. And you can see that we've just put stickers on them with a number, and that represents the number of gold coins. We did have a situation where we had a kind of crystal decoration flower thing that was really popular, and it ended up that a pair of siblings, a brother and a sister, actually put their coins together in order to be able to get that prize. And we found that this whole prize cabinet thing's been really positive in helping our students to consistently practice, and it's good for retention as well, because sometimes they might need to save up coins for more than one term or one semester or whatever in order to be able to get a prize that they particularly like. So that's some ideas about how to make sure that the behaviour in the class is encouraged to be the things that you'd like it to be, and to discourage the behaviours that you're not so keen on having. And even the idea that sometimes a teacher who's new to groups might think, I want to be friends with a student, I'm not going to be too strict or whatever. Remember that you are the boss, and what you say goes. And if you say that a certain thing is going to happen and have a certain consequence, for example, if you're going to miss out on a smiley face, or if you're going to miss out on a gold coin, you actually need to follow through with that. I think children have a really strong sense of justice, and that they need to trust that whatever system that they are part of is fairly implemented. So if you either give gold coin to absolutely everyone no matter what, it actually undermines the value of that gold coin. It becomes less kind of important to them, or the smiley face for that matter. So yeah, if you've got other ideas about what works well for managing class behaviour, we'd love to hear them. You can put them in the Facebook group or send them through to us, and we can add more materials to the website. Thank you very much. One other thing to think about is what to do if students are distracted or restless. Most of the solutions come under the overall banner of changing the dynamic in the room. We need to get students moving, especially for younger children. Expecting them to sit still for the length of the class isn't really a path to success for the students or for the teacher. We want to get them physically moving either around the room at different times or even doing something physical when they're seated for their class. There's heaps of games on the website. You can take a look at those, and they reinforce all sorts of different musical ideas. And it's another way of students interacting with each other, which is a good thing to do. Also, try and involve everyone. You might get a student to teach something to the rest of the class. That can be a fun experience for them to do, and it can really turn things around if you've got a student who's maybe not kind of joining in as much. It really gives them a sense of pride if they get an opportunity to teach the class something, and you can even use that in itself as a reward. Change them from sitting to standing or vice versa. And you can also do activities in pairs or in threes. So one example might be to have students in pairs, and they're each going to play for each other, and then the other person is going to give them 2 bits of feedback. One is to say something that they did really well, and something else that they could polish up or work on a little bit more.